After a while, this kind of stuff really starts to frustrate me, but we'll get there soon enough. It never really feels like an honest interaction because nothing changes after the fact. It's like talking to a brick wall, and that pretty much describes the religious. They just really want to believe, but they've never put any intelligent thought into it, and that becomes obvious the second you talk to them. So let's look at another clear example coming up next. We're back with Braxton Hunter and his 5 questions for atheists in 2025. At least we can be reasonably sure that he's not asking the exact same questions over and over and over again like a lot of theists do. He's kind of already done that, hasn't he? Question for you all, though. Do you think it's really worth answering these questions? I honestly do enjoy it most of the time, but more often than not, they're just a complete misunderstanding of reality forced through a Christian lens that just leaves me shaking my head. No matter what I say, it's not going to matter because people like Braxton are incapable of changing their minds. They're not here to find out what atheists really think. They're here to twist it so that they can use it in their videos. Still, we're already here, and now we're going to be over halfway through, so I guess we kind of have to continue, don't we? So, off to question 3, I guess. See you there.
Question 3. Many atheists are determinists, meaning that they don't believe in free will, at least not of the sort that many people think of when they hear the term free will.
I've already addressed that, but sure, we can do it again. I don't mind. Now, I don't know where he's going with this. This question is called Free Will and Determinism, so we'll do what we have to do and see where this goes. I guess that most of these free will discussions are essentially people talking past each other. They're talking around each other. They're not actually speaking the same language or after the same goals. If you take the time to clearly define your terms, this doesn't happen. So when I'm talking about free will, I mean the ability to make choices from among a range of available options without being unduly controlled from the outside. Influence? Sure, you can't really avoid that. I just don't have my choices predetermined by anything that can be demonstrated. If I can make a choice, then I have free will as far as I'm concerned. But you can't choose not to breathe. Yeah, just stop. You're being stupid. And yes, I have had people say that to me, and I'm sorry, but you're just making a fool of yourself. Breathing is a biological imperative that your life support apparatus, i.e. your body, needs to do for you to continue surviving. If you don't breathe, you die, and there goes all your choices, doesn't it? So that's just stupid. Let's try to keep this realistic.
They believe that the past history of the universe is like to a billion trains of dominoes or trillions of chains of dominoes that result in the past history of the cosmos, the formation of your physical body, your past life experiences, your neural structure, and the firings of neurons in your brain that are your choices, but could not have been otherwise.
And my question for all of that, for the hardcore determinist, no free will advocates is, how the hell do you know that? Because there's a whole lot of assertions going on without any evidence being presented, right? That's why I've used the examples that I have, because I have seen these claims made so often without any kind of evidentiary support that it just makes no sense when you get down to brass tacks. If you honestly believe that at the beginning of the universe, in the initial instance of the Big Bang, absolutely everything in the universe was set in motion such that it cannot be changed because the specific position of atoms and quarks determines absolutely everything, that just tells me that you haven't thought about it enough. Because you have a universe that is not intelligent, that is not designed, that is just physics doing what physics does. that they honestly think that the random interaction of matter makes it possible for me to make this video in a way that anybody who watches can comprehend what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you're nuts. A conversation could never occur under those conditions because the atoms that make up my brain couldn't make a coherent sentence that could be understood by the atoms that make up your brain. I can kind of understand people who say, well, that must mean that there's a God, because shit makes sense. So either there's something going on that we don't understand, or hard determinism, the idea that everything was eternally determined by the state of everything at the moment of the Big Bang, that is just nonsense. If that's your position on free will, we are not speaking the same language. We're just not.
On the other hand, maybe some atheists think that we have what's called libertarian freedom, the notion that whatever you ended up choosing, you really could have done otherwise.
Which is demonstrably true. As I've said many times, if I walked into an ice cream shop, I could choose any flavor that I wanted, even flavors that I knew would kill me. If I had a severe nut allergy, I could still order almond pistachio or hazelnut toffee crunch or peanut butter, whatever. I could do that. I could order an elephant if I wanted to, although that would get me some pretty funny looks. Then you will get some people saying, well, yeah, but you're just being influenced by list of stuff. Yeah, for some things, sure. But influence is not a decision, is it? Because if I did walk in and order an elephant, what is it that actually demonstrably influenced me to order an elephant? What is it that you can prove actually did? Because a lot of this is just a bunch of empty claims. I'm looking for evidence, and you are just making assertions. That doesn't work for the religious. It's not going to work for you. There are some things that do influence me, certainly. The need for my body to continue operating influences me to want to eat. It doesn't necessarily control what I want to eat, but it does make me want to go and get some food. But the things that you like to eat influence what you choose to eat. Well, they can, sure, but I can also choose to eat things that I know I can't stand. Right now, I can walk over to the coffee maker and pour myself a cup of coffee and drink it. I don't like coffee, not anymore anyhow. I used to drink it by the gallon, but in the past, 15, 20 years, I can't stand it. I hate hot drinks, period. So no, I would not enjoy that. I could go and buy a big bag of ghost peppers and just slurp them down. But I wouldn't want to do that. But I could, couldn't I? So influence is not control. There are people out there who eat things that I wouldn't eat or that they shouldn't eat. Pica is an eating disorder that has people putting non-food items in their mouths. That's biology for you. It influences what you do in bizarre ways, but you can also get treatment and stop doing that. So it's not like you're being forced to do it against your will. You can actually take steps to stop. So this whole thing is really absurd. People, just stop saying this stuff. It's really dumb.
So here's my question. If you're a determinist, how do we hold people morally culpable for things they do that could not have been otherwise, given the history of the universe?
I'm not a determinist in that sense, though, so I really can't answer this question. However, I can still answer the question because we do hold people accountable to the rules that humans make. Nobody says that the speed limit is a moral rule. At least, I hope not, because that would be kind of dumb. However, if you speed and a cop catches you, you get a ticket, or worse, depending on the circumstances, you could get arrested and put in jail. It's not immoral to speed, but you are still held accountable for following the rules in the society in which you exist. If society says you're not allowed to murder people, which most do because murdering people is not good for society, then you shouldn't murder people. Morality has nothing at all to do with it. Morality is just the emotional attachment that some people have to the rules of the culture that surrounds them. That doesn't mean that morality actually means anything, because it really doesn't. Lots of people get really attached to ideas when the ideas mean little or nothing in reality. I think that's something that a lot of people need to figure out. There's the real world, matter in motion, however you want to think about it, and then there's the social constructs that humans have made up that we live our day-to-day lives by. Those are not the same thing. In the real world, we're just a bunch of animals doing what animals do. We just evolved on this rock and we had no control over that. It doesn't matter if you like that or not, that's what's actually going on. Then, because humans have the capacity to invent social structures and control, at least to some degree, how we all behave, that's another entirely separate element. The speed limit means nothing. It's an entirely artificial invention that humans have been doing since almost the beginning of the existence of the automobile. The first speed limit came about in 1901 in Connecticut, which set the maximum speed of 12 miles an hour in cities and 15 miles an hour on country roads. That is completely artificial and arbitrary, just like everything else we do. That was, maybe 15, 16 years after cars were invented? We just make this stuff up, people. It's not that hard to understand.
And if it is the case that you believe in free will of the libertarian sort as an atheist, how is that possible without God?
That's a stupid question, though, although coming from a theist, that's not much of a surprise, is it? You can't just leap to God done it without evidence to back it up. Because can't I just say, well, how do you do that without invisible, intangible, morality-creating pixies? Just because you really like the idea, that doesn't make it a credible explanation. It's not that hard to figure out once you understand what's actually going on. And the religious, they have no interest in that, do they? Morals aren't objective. It's just shit we made up for our own utility. We have the capacity to decide what we want to do, what we want to allow others to do, and because of that, that's what we do. But that's not magical enough for these people. They want our moral inventions to be special. They're not, but they really want them to be, don't they? But that doesn't mean anything. That's why crap like slavery has come up. Because the people at the time decided that's what they wanted to do, so they invented all kinds of bald rationalizations for it, and they just put it into practice. At least until other people changed their minds. That's kind of how society works. It's just people doing whatever they can do to get through another day. It doesn't mean anything, and the crap that we come up with, it isn't forever. It isn't objective. It's just a momentary idea that we put into practice until we come up with something else. And the next thing might not even be better. It could be worse, and we see that throughout history. Although better and worse are both completely subjective, so that doesn't mean anything either. Hitler thought the Third Reich was better. Most people think he was wrong. Who's right? Nobody, because there is no right and wrong. It's only shit we made up. Get it through your head already. What we're doing today is no better or worse objectively than what we did 50 years ago, or what we'll be doing in another 50 years. It's just trying to get through the day without dying. Welcome to reality. Get a grip.
Now, just as a note, there are many determinists who will say they are compatibilists. And what that means is not that libertarian freedom is compatible with determinism. Compatibilists hold that determinism is true. It's just that we can hold people morally culpable in spite of the determinism. That moral culpability is possible, is compatible with determinism.
In general, I guess I am a compatibilist, at least insofar as there is a certain degree of determinism, but I don't think it's absolute, and I don't think that I'm being controlled by anything outside my own head. Influenced? Sure, because I am a biological being that has needs in order to survive, and I live in a culture where other people and events entirely beyond my control have a demonstrable impact on my life. But what goes on in my head, at least generally, I have some degree of control over, at least as far as the biology allows. Because all I am, all you are, all anyone is just an electrochemical reaction in the 3-pound meat sack in their head. That's it. That's all you are. That's all that's going on. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. That is the demonstrable truth. Consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. 100% of all evidence proves it. If you damage the physical brain, you damage consciousness. If you alter the physical brain, you alter consciousness. It doesn't matter what you want to be true, only what actually is. This is where we have a lot of problems, especially with the religious. They are running on pure fifis and faith, not on fact. The facts are the only things that actually matter. You need to come to grips with the facts, and a lot of people, they just don't wanna. Too bad. Facts are facts, and faith is shit. That's why so many of these questions for atheist videos go so wrong, because they aren't dealing with reality, only with the childish fantasy that they've got running in their heads. They don't really want to understand us. They want to explain why we're wrong, because what we say makes them unhappy. This is honestly the problem, and the religious don't want to hear it. A lot of atheists, they don't want to hear it either, but it remains undeniably true. You've got to deal with real. What you want is entirely irrelevant. Grow the hell up. Enough said.
So it doesn't answer the question. I'm asking that question. How, if you're a determinist, how is it that people are morally culpable given that their choices could not have been otherwise?
So it's just one irrational belief questioning another. Because if you really look at the hardcore determinists, the ones who actually do what he's implying, then the whole question falls apart, because you can't help holding yourself or others responsible, period. You can't help doing anything. They were forced to commit the crime, and everybody else involved was forced to throw them in jail. Nobody had a choice in this, because choice is a complete illusion. So Braxton doesn't understand what he's asking, which I guess isn't much of a surprise either. Under the hard determinist model, Braxton had no choice but to make this video, and I had no choice but to make this response. If it's in the deterministic cards that I have to go and bash somebody's brains in later today, then I'm going to go do that because it's already been set in stone. Nobody has a choice, and that's the whole point. Everybody's actions are predetermined down to the smallest element. The fact that I just got up and got a drink, that was something I had no choice but to do. It was determined from the very beginning of time. The fact that I just wrote the last word that I wrote, that was determined too. So this is such a complete clusterfuck that it's hard to even address because everybody is just talking past each other. And that's usually the problems in these discussions. So let's just move on.
And if you believe in free will, how is that possible without God?
I already addressed that, because even if you say God done it, that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't explain anything. It's just Braxton blathering on about something he really wishes was true, but he can't show that it actually is. This is just wishful thinking in action. That's the end of the third question, and it took a while because Braxton, and a lot of people I figure, are so far out in the weeds that they can't even consider the ramifications of their positions rationally. That's why I don't talk about free will much, because it's just a mess. Because if hard determinism is true, nothing else matters. You and I are not having a conversation. We're just following a script that came into being 13.8 billion years ago, and we have no choice in the matter. We aren't thinking. Our brain chemistry is just reacting to the brain state that just so happens to exist right this second. It's hard to even say that consciousness is real because you have no control over it. It's just neurons firing as they were predetermined to do from the moment of the Big Bang. it all just falls apart, and on Braxton's side, it's no better. God knows everything that will ever happen with perfect clarity and cannot possibly be wrong. So you still don't have any control. What you do today was something that God foresaw from before you were born. You have no free will. You can't have free will. The Christian conception of God makes that impossible. So both sides are bullshit. That's why these discussions mean absolutely nothing, because you've got two groups that just talk past each other, even though, if you really think about it, they're both doing the exact same thing. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Let me know what you think down in the comments, because at the moment, my head hurts and I want to go lay down.